Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. This is, of course, a podcast where we let you know what's going on in the world of TV and film. And this week, there are some films, and there is some TV coming up as well. As always, I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me is Grace. How you doing, Grace?
I'm doing well, Taran. What a big week for you and all the other alphas.
Truly. Really got to bear it all today.
Yep, that's right. We're here. We're going to talk about it. I'm excited. Fun week.
Yes. Big things on the docket today. We both saw 28 Years Later. We're going to talk a bit about that. We're actually going to have a spoiler section to talk about it with some spoilers at the end of the podcast. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk a bit about Elio, a couple of news items, renewal, some news from AMC about what they're going to be doing with some ads in their theater. I caught up on a couple shows, a couple movies, and then, of course, we'll talk about what's coming this week, which, of course, includes Squid Game, the final season, or at least the third season, which is the second part of the second season.
Yeah, 2.5, the end of, yeah, whatever. And the Bear, I believe, right? The Bears this week. It's a
Bears coming.
It's a big TV week, I feel like.
It
we're going to
is.
be inundated with television this week. So, yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get into it. Let's kick things off with some of this news. Grace, you shared this one with me just earlier before we started recording that AMC has just announced that they are now going to be showing ads, like actual real advertisements in their, now upwards of 30 minutes prior to the movie actually showing from the time that it says it's going to be showing.
Yes. So, I mean, the thing about this, I saw some people were quite upset about this news that AMC is adding like sort of regular ads as opposed to trailer ads before the movie. This has been a thing in Canada for a very long time. I feel like it can wane a little bit where, like, if you're kind of lucky, you get like, the movie starts 15 minutes after it was advertised. So 7 o'clock movie will start at 7:15, but it can sometimes be upwards of like 25 minutes before the actual movie starts. And a bunch of that, at least in Canada here where I am, and at other movie theaters I've been to, is a bunch of just like, truck advertisements and movie delivery stuff and phone, companies, all that sort of jazz. So this is like not new to me. And I also think like this feels in line with a movie industry that, like, is doing less well than it has maybe in previous years, sort of since COVID. That's been sort of the talk, is like, is this, the movie theaters struggling to stay afloat? And so it does not surprise me that they'd be looking for an additional way to make money in the form of just, not trailer ads before the movie. So
yeah. I mean, genuinely, I don't think I even necessarily mind this if it means that I don't have to watch Nicole Kidman.
You probably
and
still have to
the
watch
Coke
Nicole
ad.
Kidman, I think, probably. Yeah.
If I still have to watch those, I'm out.
I think you will have to watch both. Yeah. In Canada, we get one. So if any Canadian listeners are watching and you go to Cineplex, we get basically a bunch of like regular ads, sort of, as I said, for like trucks and cell phone companies and whatever, restaurants, whatever. And then we get this thing, and it's like the shtick is like these little popcorn people. They're like army soldiers or popcorn people, and they like fend off. I think, and I think it's for scene points. I think is what they're like promoting. But the little popcorn people, and then we get all of our ads or trailers, and then the movie starts. So you're gonna get both. I think you're still gonna get the Nicole Kidman AMC ad, I think.
Well, I feel like normally how it worked is that you would get real ads prior to showtime if you showed up earlier than the advertised time, and then once the advertised time hits, it goes into trailers. But basically, what it sounds like they're doing is they're going to be pushing advertisements into that section as well. Which really just the annoying thing for me is that I do not like being late. And so it's very difficult for me to not only show up like on time, like later than on time, but like even like I want to be even earlier.
I know.
So I usually plan to show up late and then still end up showing like a good 10 to 15 minutes earlier than I anticipated. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, and like they're never going to be like, oh, don't worry, that the movie will actually start at 7:15. Like there will always be 15 minutes of trailers and ads because like that's the bad for the ad business. Like they need people to be sitting in their seat when the ad is playing, or the ad is kind of pointless. So I don't really know. There'll be a fluctuating amount of time, but generally, I don't think I've ever sat. I go to many movies. I on Saturday Turn, I saw 3 movies in the movie theater. I go to a lot of movies, and I don't think a movie has ever started for me other than like this is at a big chain. I will caveat that like sometimes I go to a special screening of something and like there's no trailers or whatever. The movie has never started 15 minutes earlier than 15 minutes after the time given. So you always basically have 15 minutes to get.
Well, that's always my biggest fear is that one day I'm going to show up 25 minutes late and it's going to be 25 minutes into the movie.
Can I tell you something? I don't think you need to worry because the movie theaters need to sell these advertisements. And so I don't think you're ever going to like show up and they're like, yeah, I think like 20 minutes. If you get 20 minutes late, maybe like the movie started already.
Sometimes for like the 70mm IMAX showings, people are like, no trailers on this one. And I'm like, what?
Okay. Yeah. That's what I mean by a special event movie though. Like to me, that's like, that feels special eventy.
But then I go and there were trailers. So
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, that's what's going on in the world of movie theaters. Just I would say probably another not great sign for the health of the overall industry.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I wish there were no ads, but also like, not enough people go to the movies. So
yeah. I also noted Mobland got renewed for a second season.
It did get renewed. Yeah, this show did really well. I think it was their number 2 original it's their number 2 original streaming series. So basically all that means is that Landman was more popular and there are other shows that they bought from other platforms that are not the original shows that did better than this, but all that being said, it's very popular. So yeah, it's coming back. I like Mobland. I think it's like very fun. It's certainly a dad show. It's certainly in line with Landman and Yellowstone and all that stuff. But I think it's very fun. It's pretty gory. You know what? And the other thing I'll give that show credit for is they kill off a lot of people. So they go for it. So that's the other thing I'll say about Mobland is that they're not precious about people. I mean, you could argue that like there's a level of people on that show who are not going to die off, which is fair, but I do think like it was pretty impactful. I'm excited for a season 2 of Mobland.
All right, any other news before we get into the new things of the week?
Don't think so, not on my end. Oh, well, I had one. Sorry, I did have one small one. Just very quick. New York Times, very interestingly, they're going to do their, I think, 100 best movies of the 21st century, and you can actually vote. So if you go to New York Times, there's a link somewhere on there. You have to have a New York Times account. You don't have to have a paid account, but you can vote for it. I think that's kind of interesting that they're sort of compiling a best of list, and anybody can vote. I think critic votes get more weight, but anybody can vote on their list. You can submit up to 10 films. Sorry, Taran.
No. I feel like it's been a while since I've seen like a well-established like this is the best movie of all time on a list. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So this is 21st century, so it has to be released 2001 onward.
So it's not all time.
Not all time. 21st century. Yeah.
What would you expect to top the list, Grace?
Yeah, I was trying to think. I was like kind of going through and doing a little bit of like. I do feel like a movie like Parasite could be.
That was my first thought.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a Best Picture winner that's like kind of like critically acclaimed. That feels like a good shout. I mean, if it's 21st century, you also get like, you get like Lord of the Rings could be. I feel like it's like I don't know that it would be out, but like yeah, it's like right in there, right? Like I was thinking Dune. One of the first things I thought of was Dune. I like love that movie, but I think maybe that's a little not critically. They're asking you to create a free account, Taran. Oops. Yeah, I'd be interested in what people like. Just first thought, what people think, if they could post that in the comments or tweet at us, what you think the top movie on that list will be. Do you have a thought, Taran? I guess you said Parasite.
Yeah, I mean, Parasite was the first thing that came to mind, just because you'd obviously the first thought I think is to look at Best Picture winners, and I think of the Best Picture winners, Parasite stands out as something that is, as you mentioned, both critically acclaimed and sort of very popular with like mainstream audiences and like movie buffs. Like it kind of hits every corner.
Looks like maybe they're releasing it. Maybe I was like way back. Like I think 80 to 100 got released today, maybe. So I can run off a little bit of it. Black Swan is the highest ranking film so far at 81. They haven't released the last. Inside Llewyn Davis is here.
Super bad. If Memories of Murder is number 99, I have high hopes for Parasite.
Past Lives made number 86.
Oh wow. Gravity.
Yeah.
Black
Lord
Panther.
of the Fellowship of the Ring is 87. Yeah. So there's Interstellar.
Michael Clayton, Gladiator. Francis Ha, Interstellar.
My first thought is, wow, these are a lot of really good films. So like, there's more coming.
Fellowship of the Ring at 87. I feel like that doesn't speak well for Two Towers and Return of the King.
I feel like Return of the King.
I would have put them pretty high.
Isn't Return of the King? I think Return of the King is the highest rated one, though. I think, like in terms of like critic. Am I wrong about that?
I would say. I mean, like you go to the IMDb top 250.
Yeah.
Which
people still put weight in this. I feel like that used to be like a thing that I feel like
it used to be such a thing.
Yeah.
Return of the King is number 6 of all time on that list, but Fellowship is number 9. So like,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But maybe people voted, if you're rating all of them, maybe more people put, because you only get 10 votes. So then people put Return and only Return, So like
Inside Llewyn Davis, 83 is a little surprising to me.
I'm quite happy to see like Superbad and Anchorman on there, even though I know like just to be on that list is very funny to me. Yeah. The only movies I think I haven't seen on this list are there's 2 documentaries so far, and I have not seen either of them, I don't believe. So I'll be checking those out.
Oh, which ones?
The Act of Killing It.
The Act of Killing?
Yeah, The Act of Killing, sorry. And then
I actually have seen that one. It's very chilling, I would say.
Is it Grizzly Man is the other one? I think there's the other documentary on there.
Yeah, I think I saw the Grizzly Man was here somewhere.
And
yes, that's a Herzog. I think I've seen that one as well.
Yeah.
But there are a couple I haven't seen as well.
Oh, The Gleaners and Eyes on there, which is a Agnes Varda documentary, which I haven't seen.
I did not see that one. Cleaners and Eyes.
A lot of 3 documentaries in the top 20, like the bottom 20, I guess. Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, fun. Maybe we'll check back in on it when it is finished unveiling.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's jump in then. Let's talk about 28 Days Later a little bit. We're gonna talk no spoilers for 28 years later. But we will talk spoilers later in the podcast. But I just want to touch on it right here. The 28 years. It's hard to say 28 years later. It's so ingrained in me to say 28 days.
Yeah.
It came out this weekend. We both saw it. I guess like initial impressions, Grace.
Oh, I think it's incredible. I think it's like really, really good. But like, I think you and I have been fairly high on the Alex Garland train. And I know you're particularly high on Danny Boyle. So I feel like between that, it's probably not surprising that maybe both of us like it. But there is an aspect to this movie that I, didn't know was going to be there, which is it's heavily in line with sort of commentary on Brexit, which I didn't expect going in. And I just think this is extremely well done. It's like super gory. It's super graphic, but at the same time, it is, I think, a very compelling story. A lot different than I think I thought it was in terms of thinking it was basically going to be like an Aaron Taylor Johnson action flick. And it turns out to be a sort of sweet coming of age film, there's the performances I think are excellent. The visuals are really good. I think the story is really good. So it sort of hits all the things I tend to be looking for. With one giant, caveat that I think we'll have to talk about later. There's like one giant thing that I think has been the most polarizing thing about the movie that I'm desperate not to talk about.
Yes. I loved it as well. I mean, I think that there's a couple of things I think about this movie. One is that it is doing well in the box office. It is not like out of the park necessarily, but it is doing better than the previous 2 28 blank laters did. It's doing better than most Danny Boyle movies you normally do. And this is important because this is the first of a new trilogy even though this is technically
That's
part
right.
of a previous trilogy.
That's right.
They've already filmed the second movie. I believe Danny Boyle is on record saying that the third one is going to be dependent on how well these two do.
And he doesn't direct the second one. It's the second one is being directed by a different director. So
yes, but still written by Garland, I believe.
That's right. That's correct.
So far seems to be doing well enough. There is some skepticism for like how long the legs are for this movie, because it has received praise, but there's also a little bit of like trepidation, a little bit of some people not sure about it. There's sort of, I think, two main reasons for this, one of which we will talk about in the spoiler section with more sort of detail. But one of the main things I think for me was that 28 days later, classic, you see not that much higher on the IMDb rating scale. But everyone loves this movie, right? Everyone remembers this movie. It really popularized the fast zombie. It had the great shot in the middle of London where it was empty. It's got a very early Cillian Murphy, who is now since super blown up. Christopher Eccleston is really good in it. And it was such a cult classic, kind of became even more mainstream. I think that a lot of people forgot the style of this movie, or maybe just anticipated that the style of the movie would not carry into a sequel made 23 years later. But this 28 years later, so Danny Boyle in terms of like the visual style, the pacing, the editing. It is very Danny Boyle, and it also has a lot of I wouldn't necessarily call them super tone shifty, but I have seen that said about the movie, that there are some tone shifts, which is of course very Alex Garland and Danny Boyle. So these are things that I think I was not surprised by when I came in to watch the movie, but I think some people were, and that has led to some amount of, I think, bouncing off of this, even though I do think overall it is still pretty highly praised.
Yeah, I mean this film was primarily shot on an iPhone as well, which is one of the things I think is wild about it. But yeah, I mean, the tone shift is I feel like there's only one jarring tone shift in
I
the
agree.
whole movie.
I think there's an over sort of dramatization of the tone shifts in this movie. I think that it is pretty tonally consistent, apart from a specific thing that I don't think we'll talk too much more about.
And even that, once you know more, you're like, oh, okay, whatever. So everything else I feel like is like there are definitely acts to this film. Like I definitely think that like by the end of the first act, I was like, oh wow, like I actually thought that this was going to be what the whole film was going to be about, and we don't do that, and that's fine, because I think like all sort of three acts of the film are important and interesting and are in conversation with one another. So I don't know that the only thing so the movie has basically made its stated budget back, which is $60 million. It's made 60 million domestically. Most people think that you have to double that budget. So whatever they say the budget is, you then have to double it because of all the marketing spend that you put behind it. So I think this movie will easily do that. So it's going to be profitable. The only thing I worry about a little bit in terms of like people not checking it out is that I think there has been a little bit of this like reaction to it that I worry people won't go see. But also, if you look at what's coming, you have Megan and F1, and the week after you have Jurassic World, and you still have these like animated movies like How to Train Your Dragon still won the weekend. And not that I think Elio's just gonna like die out, which we'll talk about Elio in a bit. And is there another anime? Lilo and Stitch, I think, is still playing. That should probably like fade out a little bit too as you get these other movies. But like Jurassic World, I think probably should be the one that like F1 and Megan are not exactly children's movies, I would imagine. So anyway, interesting I just think that like it's going to run into some stiff competition in terms of like what people choose to see. I do think this is one that people will kind of like, I think, just keep finding and liking. Like as soon as this hits,
I agree,
whatever streamer, you're gonna get these people who don't go to the movies being like, oh my god, checked out 28 years later. It's really good. Like, Yeah, I know. It's really good.
This is not your standard like shallow horror. I think there's a lot in this movie, and despite some people sort of not really loving the initial impression of it, I think there's a lot to dig into, and I think that especially over time, just like 28 Days, I think a lot of people will come around to it if they hadn't already initially, because I do think it's very, very good. All right, well, let's then talk about Elio, the other movie that came out this week from Pixar.
Yeah, Elio. I saw Elio. I like it. This is doing pretty well. Actually, like the IMDb score is 7.1. I think that the Rotten Tomato score are extremely favorable to Elio, and I do actually think it's a cute little movie. It's about a boy who feels very alone and dreams of meeting aliens in space, and then that happens, and he gets all sorts of hijinks, and it's a lot about self-esteem and image and loneliness, and I don't know, I just think it's quite good. It's quite neat. I do feel like it's not, Pixar's best, but I don't think it's bad by any means. I saw a lot of people talking about how this movie was not marketed very much, and I think that probably I mean, last week you were talking about how you didn't know that there was a Pixar movie coming out and sort of missed like a wave of Pixar movies. And so yeah, I think that this will be one that will do extremely well on streaming, but will just sort of never find its footing at the box office likely. I think it's the Pixar's worst performing movie ever, I think. So rough
And
for
this
Elio.
one not currently on track to make its budget back, I think.
Yeah, I think because it was so like they did a bunch of like rewrites and things in this movie. I think that the budget for this movie like ballooned up. I've heard reports of anywhere from 150 million to 300 million. So, if it's 300 million, then like super yikes, I think, which maybe explains why they didn't do a lot of marketing, because they didn't want to sort of continue to be sunk by the cost of this thing. But I don't know. I think this is a movie that, like, again, like people will watch when it comes to Disney Plus and be like, "Oh, that was kind of sweet. That was kind of good." So, yeah, but
yeah, and the fact that it was good, I think, has made the story even more dramatic, because it's like, if Pixar can't make a good original film pop, then what is their strategy moving forward? Because obviously, as we mentioned last week, they have a lot of sequels on the docket. Are they going to just turn into a sequel machine? Can they produce original movies anymore that will hit? Or are they, because they are no longer like independent. They may not have the freedom to continue to experiment like this. So this is potentially some big news.
Yeah, Hoppers is the next movie that's coming out, which I believe is has to be a rabbit movie, right? Robotic animals, yeah, robotic animal movie. Hoppers. But then you have Toy Story 5, Incredible Street, Coco 2. There's another movie in there called Gatto.
A robotic beaver.
Hoppers is about a robotic beaver. Okay, all right. Whatever, man. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like, this movie, I mean, it's so like this movie is going to get so trounced by, I presume, Jurassic, like How to Train Your Dragon and Lilo and Stitch still being in theaters when it comes out, and then Jurassic World coming out in a couple weeks. I just think it's absolutely going to trounce any chance this movie had, even after having some good reviews. So yeah.
All right, anything else new this week, Grace?
I did watch the Netflix show The Waterfront. I watched the first episode, and you know what, like I don't think that the show is particularly good, but I don't know that it's like super bad either. I thought this was like, so basically what this, apparently it's based on a true story. I didn't know that, which is a little bit more interesting, but basically this family sort of ends up being involved in some drug world criminal stuff. I thought it was better than I expected. I certainly was expecting it to be a little bit schlockier, and actually found the performances to be quite good. Actually, I really like Holtz McElhenney, so I think he's really good. In this is, as we said last week, from the creators of Dawson's Creek and Scream. It does have some, like, it's not horror. It definitely has some like crime stuff going on. It kind of feels like a worse Ozark, maybe. Like the kids aren't kids in that, like, sort of, I don't know. It's not great, but
Is
it
it?
was not as
I
bad as
because
I was
I
expecting.
got like Taylor Sheridan like vibes. I got just kind of
Kind
whatever
of with
that show is,
with a
Yellowstone
little more
vibes.
of like the like beat, they're like, on the beach, that like they own boats, I think, like that's the whole shtick, that they're like
Okay, so
helping
that's what the
smuggle
Ozark
drug.
connection.
Yeah, they're smuggling drugs on like boats, that's, I think, sort of the shtick, like fishery stuff. I don't know. I don't think people need to go rush to check this out, but like it's fine. It was fine.
I think
Yeah.
for me the most interesting thing about the Waterfront is that Holt McElhenney, in sort of like doing the press for it, has talked about Mindhunter and how apparently
Yes.
he's talked to David Fincher about how they might do like 3 Mindhunter movies to
I, s-
conclude the
I
series.
saw that, which is, I'm all for that. We were just talking about David Fincher last week, as we're talking about sort of like
Mhm.
movie to TV directors. So yeah, would love a Mindhunter wrap up for sure.
Well, I did catch up on a couple of shows. I did check out the first episode of Revival. Um, and I think I share your opinion on this one, actually. I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I was not that interested. It very much is, I think, what you should expect for it. It was what I expected, but I think the thing that most disappointed me about it was that the premise of this show is that the dead come back to life. And I feel like that premise was like the C plot of the pilot episode.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
What are we doing here? I'm not here. I'm not watching a sci-fi show for the family drama. You know what I mean? I'm watching it for the A plot of the people coming back to life, and the family drama is the C plot that I can gloss over.
Right.
And so yeah, I didn't particularly enjoy it. I also finished the Four Seasons.
Okay.
I remember. I think that you said that you wanted me to check in when I finished it because you
Yes.
had a thought about the end. I don't remember what
Well,
your thought was. Though.
well, there's just a big thing that happens, so I don't know whether or not we
There is
should
a big thing
like.
that
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just tough because like I think we're gonna spoil 20 years later. I almost it feels like, yeah, there's just a big thing that happens that I feel like is quite unexpected, and yet the show, I believe it's coming back. Is that right? It's coming back, I think.
Another season, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do a brief Four Seasons spoiler section at the end as well.
Okay. Can I tell you? There's a very funny story going around. There's like a Hollywood reporter, like the actors round, like the roundtables. There's a creators roundtable, so it has like Brett Goldstein and it has Paul W. Downs from Hacks, and the creator of this show is on it. And there's this very funny thing where apparently when you want to have porn in your show, so like there was a scene where like somebody walks in and the woman is watching porn on the screen. Apparently you can't just like source it. You have to make your your own. And so she was like, I really don't want to do that. They're like, okay, go through this. We know this guy who makes his porn ethically, and so you can pick from his thing. But then she had to like watch that porn to like figure out which one she was gonna. It's a very funny story about how like I get
That
that.
is very funny.
That does make sense. Like if you can't just go find a random because you're not sure whether that was like done, sort of like with the proper things that you would want to be done. And so they're like, nope, you have to make it. She's like, I am not making that.
You have to make it as such a wild,
So funny.
like
Yeah.
plan B.
Yeah.
Um,
What did you
anyway,
make of it though? Yeah, what'd you make of
I
it?
thought it was a good show. I thought that it was funny. It was sweet. It was feel good. I think is a decent shout for it. I think that like it was just a good show to throw on, and it was enjoyable, and I felt like I could take my time with it, and yeah, I'm happy for another season. It's I think exactly what sort of Tina Fey sort of described it to me as like when I saw her talk about it, which is like yeah, it's just like a bunch of my friends hanging out in cool locations, and it worked.
Yeah, I think we kind of commented on the log that people are like, It's made out of a movie," and I was like, "Yeah, I know it's a like an Alan Alda movie." I do feel like you can feel the moviness in it when you're watching when you
Yeah.
like as it goes like basically once the first, and I know this is so silly. I know it's called the Four Seasons, but part of the premise is that like every couple of episodes, it's like a different season, and they're on a different
Mhm.
they're at like a different place. And as soon as that happened, I was like, "Oh, like you can sort of feel." the like the adaptationness of it, and then I do feel like by the end of it, the thing that happens feels not like like it doesn't feel like it's adapting it and really trying to, you know, both interestingly, both trying to do its own thing and be a thing that can like keep going, you know. So yeah, it is a big thing that happens at the end of the season. I mean, it is big. Yeah. It is a wild swing, but yeah.
I also watched a movie. I watched Final Destination Bloodlines.
See, my problem with I need to watch this, but I keep being like, oh, you should watch all the other Final Destinations because I don't remember them at all, and then I end up not doing that and not
I thought about doing that, and then I decided I don't think I need to do that, and I don't think I needed to do it.
Okay,
so
good to know.
I think I would say you're pretty free to watch this movie completely. I would say I wouldn't say like if you haven't seen any of the previous Final Destinations ever. Then yeah, you should go watch them. But if you've seen them and you just don't remember them, like I don't think you need to go back and rewatch. You'll probably like, from my perspective, any of the references or like homages to previous Final Destinations, you'll probably get because you'll be like, oh, I see.
Yeah, I do feel like in my head, I always feel like the movie isn't gonna explain it, but I'm sure they're like this person from the last film, you know, like we have to go talk to, you know, like I'm sure it's very much spelled out for you.
It's a pretty self-contained story, I would say, in terms of like explaining itself. And it was pretty fun. Yeah, I thought it was pretty fun. It wasn't really what I expected. There was a moment when I had to pause it and I was like, oh, there's only 30 minutes left. Like I feel like we just got started, but it didn't feel overly long. And it had some very gruesome kills, which I think is, you know, a large part of what you're looking for with this kind of horror. So, yeah, it was good stuff.
I feel like most people, I feel like even the people who like are not rating it like super high, like not being like, oh, it's, you know, 5 stars. I feel like they're like, no, that was fun. Like the lowest rating I see from people I know on Letterboxd is like a 3 stars, you know? And so like, yeah, great.
I would say in terms of the Final Destination movies, quite frankly, I only really remember the first 2 distinctly. The others blend. It's better than all of the others, I would say, in terms of like it's standing on its own. The first one has just the concept and the premise, which is what carries the entire series. So it's hard to beat that. And then the second one has like, I think the most famous set piece. So I think it's maybe hard to beat that as well. But I think that like it stands up. Like if you're a big fan of the first 2, I think it holds up to that kind of quality.
I saw they were releasing some TikToks and Instagram reels that showed that like they do a lot of this stuff practically, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else to catch up on?
I don't think so. I don't think I caught up on much this week.
Let's get into what's coming then, because there's quite a lot. First of all, of course, Squid Game. Season 3, which is really the second part of season 2. It is being advertised, as you can see here, the final season. Although I have heard some light talk of like, oh, maybe some spin-offs, maybe some, you know, something else, because obviously this is quite the cash cow or cash pig, I guess, if you're looking at the little
big one would be the prequel, right? It's like it's so fun. All of these movies that are like, or these like properties that are like about a big death, you know, death match thingy, are like this one is about the way that they conquered and stopped that thing from happening.
Right.
Okay, now do you want to see what happened 20 years ago? Like, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So I'm excited and, as I mentioned before, sort of like anxious about like I've got to watch this in a certain amount of time, especially like it's for me, especially it's butting right up against Big Brother, in terms of like I'll have maybe like a week and a half to watch this before, or maybe yeah, like about a week and a half, maybe.
So it debuts on Friday the 27th, and you have, well, like the Big Brother season, the date that it starts isn't the date that you start to go into Big Brother mode, I presume, but that's July 10th. So, yeah.
So, I mean, that's enough time, but I do have to like make sure, because I want to like, you know, I want to properly take it in. I don't want to just like binge it necessarily, but we'll see.
I mean, I guess the big question is, do we know how many episodes this
that is a good question.
This is, because season 2 was 7 episodes. That's right, 7 episodes. I feel like they were like long, but not super long.
It's not
but
listed on IMDb how many episodes.
But whether or not this new season will have 6 episodes, it says the third and final season for now, 6 episodes. Those could be like jumbo episodes. It could be like, I could imagine the finale being like 120, 130. So we'll see. I'm very excited. Yeah, go ahead.
If it's anything like The Devil's Plan, which I also just recently finished season 2 of, the episodes I think on average were about an hour 40 minutes. Yeah, it was like 18 hours of television for 12 episodes.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting that, but I could see a couple of these episodes being really long, just because if this is it, maybe they're trying to get their bang for their buck here. But I'm excited. I really like season 1. I really like season 2. I think like it's very fun to think of this show as like, when did season 1 premiere? Like it became such a cultural moment so quickly. This is September of 2021. Yeah, I remember like sort of like, that few couple months, everyone being like, have you watched Squid Game yet? And then slowly people would watch it, and it was just so good. It's certainly one of the things that I think like over the last 5 years, like, is the biggest cultural phenomenon to have had. Like, is there anything that you can put sort of on par with a thing that like didn't exist as of middle of 2021 that now is as much of a juggernaut as Squid Game? Like, it's so,
I don't think so.
It's just, its style is so unique and singular. It's I mean, obviously it's like a joke about these like death game style shows. It's obviously iterative of those things, but yeah, it's so good. I'm very excited for the final season.
I found an article saying, how long are the episodes of Squid Game 3? We'll tell you.
Oh.
How much do you want to bet they don't tell us?
Oh, they probably don't tell. I thought that's what they said in the article, but you're saying that's the name.
That's the headline.
We'll tell you.
So far, the official runtime of the episodes in Squid Game 3 haven't been confirmed.
Here's the thing, Taran. Sometimes I have to write these type of articles where it's like you gotta write the article on what people are searching, even if you don't necessarily know the answer.
You're really gonna write "will tell you"?
Yeah, we'll tell you is tough. We'll tell you is tough. Yeah.
All right. So that's Squid Game. Of course, we also have The Bear. Season 4 is dropping this week.
So I'm very excited because here's what I think is going to happen when The Bear comes out. I think all those people who are like, The Bear season 3 was bad are going to realize, like, actually The Bear season 3 was really good. And not because I think The Bear season 4 is actually going to be worse or bad. I think it's going to be good. This is a show. I think part of the problem was this was conceived as a 3-season show that got extended into season 4. I don't believe they've said this is the last season of The Bear. So, we'll see. But there definitely was a feeling like not enough happened in season 3. And it definitely felt like a cliffhanger, but here we are. We're only about a year later and the season is coming out. They were filmed not entirely back to back, but the majority of season 4, I believe, was filmed at the same time as season 3. So they were definitely conceived. And I believe when they were renewed for season 3, they were like, do you want a multi-season renewal? Like, we would give you that if you want it. And they're like, no, thank you. And then knowing he could go back and ask for that, that's when he like split up these seasons into 2 parts. So these are very much of, I think, one idea, one sort of thing. I really love season 3. I think season 3 to me is like, if I look at The Bear is kind of the story of like, what if you loved this thing, and then what if you have to do this thing every day of your life? Like, what if you get the dream of like opening up this fancy restaurant, and the expectation when people come into your restaurant is like they want the best meal they've ever had in your whole life, and so every night you have to give people the best meal they've ever had their whole life. And so like this like achieving of a thing that is about trying to achieve that thing every day, I think is like a really fascinating idea. And I get that people bumped up against kind of how frustrating that was, and how that first episode of season 3 being very like, whatever, like it was more of a recap than a flashback episode than anything. But I just really like it. So I'm really excited for season 4. And I'm hoping people will come to appreciate season 3 as they watch season 4 as well. So I'm
imagining now a TV series about me doing live feed updates every day, because I feel like that's exactly, isn't that it? It's like, yeah, you like achieve, like you're like, oh, if I only I could do this thing, and then you do it. Oh man, I'm imagining myself as as Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah,
like, oh man, I just love the podcasting so much, but oh man, these viewers, oh,
Well, isn't that the thing? It's like, yeah, you do the thing you want to do, and with that thing is obviously an amazing thing you get to do. And also, there are things that, like, by doing that thing every day, you know, it's a lot. It could be a lot. So I found it really fast,
And then,
and
of
I feel
course,
like the show
there's
is trying to make
lots
you
of
feel like that. Yeah,
lots of yelling behind the scenes as well here on the
of
podcast,
course.
just
Yeah, chef.
constantly.
Yeah, chef.
Uh,
hmm
I famously at the start of this podcast, this when we started doing this podcast, was trying to get through The Bear. I think
Like
as of right now,
early bear, not
early
even.
Bear. I was
Yeah,
in season 2.
yeah.
As of right now, I've decided not to continue with The Bear. If season 4 comes out and everyone's like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life," maybe I'll come back to it. But if
I
season 4 comes out and people are like,
No, I don't think you should, because I feel like, I think I was pushing you. I wanted to see if when you got, because people didn't really like season 3 and you didn't like
Mhm.
seasons 1 and 2. And I was like, if you get to 3 and you like 3, I think that's interesting. Like you being like polar opposite
That's
of,
true.
and then you watch season 3 and you're like, nah, whatever. And so I was like, don't watch anymore. Don't worry about it. Like, even if people think it's
Well,
the
I don't
best,
think I
like,
got to season 3. I think I was still stuck in season 2.
I think you did do season.
Did
Or,
I?
you know what? You could have gotten. There's these back-to-back episodes in season 2, which are
That's
forks
what
and
happened.
fishes, and that was the one where we were like, yeah, if you don't think that those are great, then, because there's some debate, I feel like, between which one is the better episode, but they're both kind of considered these amazing episodes, but one is a lot more stressful than the other. And I think you were like, yeah. And we were like, okay, you don't need to watch anymore of the bear. If you're not vibing on forks or fishes, like, you're good. You don't.
I thought Forks was good. I did not like Fishes, and the level of good that I thought Forks was not enough to
Yeah.
counteract the level of bad that I did thought Fishes was.
I don't think you. I think we all have these things that are like, it's like, no, I get that
Yeah.
it's, people like it, but it's not, it's not for me.
Yeah, very much the case. I don't doubt its quality. It's just not something that captures my interest. All right, there are a couple other shows. There's Ironheart,
Ironheart, yeah.
which is coming this week. This is a new Marvel show. Actually, it's the most advanced suit of armor since Iron Man. It's sort of like, I guess, the next Iron Man.
She's been in a movie. She was in the second Black Panther movie. And this show, I believe, was maybe supposed to come out a little bit sooner than this, and then I think has been delayed a little bit. I think that this show, I haven't seen. I've definitely seen them market this show. I think that they are a little. Yeah. So this was originally scheduled to debut in late 2023, but it got pushed back.
They're really
all the
pushing
way.
the Ryan Coogler connection, but I look at the creator and it is not Ryan Coogler.
It's not. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for I will definitely be checking this out. How is it being released? Is it being released? It's being released
I
in
think
2
Disney
batches.
usually goes.
No,
Yeah.
it's 2 batches. So it's 3 episodes on Tuesday, the 24th, and 3 episodes on the 1st. So it's a 2-week, which to me feels. Here's my take. I feel like they are worried about the reaction they're going to get to this movie, and I think part of that is this thing that we always talk about, and there are like certain fandoms that get this thing where it's like, yes, the show that is being led by like a Black young female person is going to receive, like, this is not going to be a thing that people are going to be like, oh my god, it's amazing. It will have these, like, critiques of it that I think are unfair, and I think Disney is a little bit like not placating to them, but a little bit of like, just get it out. So we'll see.
Well, also, like the Marvel TV shows in general, I think have had a pretty lackluster response.
It's so true. So I don't know. Let's see. It has a really fun cast. It has Anthony Ramos in it. I believe Shea Coulee, if you're a Drag Race fan, is going to be in this show. Eric Andre, I think, is in the show. So Sacha Baron Cohen, I heard, I think is in the show. We'll see.
You're listing all these names. I don't see any of them. I'm sure. Yeah, there's Eric Andre.
I think that maybe these are some of these more like cameo appearances. Here's what I'll say. I believe I have screeners for this. I'm happy to watch basically all of it, and we'll see what it's like by next week. Although by next week it'll only be a day before
all right,
the rest of the season comes out. But yeah.
There's a show called Countdown, coming to Prime. And this is like a policey, is a copy show.
It's Jensen Ackles.
Yes.
People will know from Supernatural or The Boys. I think is probably. Yeah, he's Soldier Boy in The Boys.
It's LAPD officer joins a secret task force to investigate a suspicious murder, but ends up having to unite with the team and save the city.
This is so Amazon Prime right now.
It's so
where they had
Amazon Prime right
they had
now.
like Cross, and would they have Reacher as well, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
they love these shows. I mostly just I thought this was going to be an American version of the show Countdown, which is a very fun British show that I love. Particularly love 8 out of 10 Cats does Countdown, but alas, I'll have to settle for Jensen Ackles as a Homeland Security. Actually, he's an LAPD detective, I think.
So the creator of this show did Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Chicago Med, FBI International, Chicago Justice.
Did you know I have a long-running bit about Chicago? Did you know this?
I'm surprised it's an LAPD officer, not a Chicago PD officer.
Fans of post-show recaps will know that one time on this started because Josh Wigler was doing a feedback podcast for community building. I said, this podcast is great, but I wish you talked more about the TV show Chicago Fire. And that started a long-running bit of us all being fans of Chicago Fire specifically.
There you go.
Yeah. Countdown. Okay. All right. We'll see.
And then one more. Oh, go ahead.
I just think this is one that I probably won't even watch. I have to tell you.
Oh,
I think this will be the first and last time we talk about Countdown, unless it somehow blows up.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think the big thing is that it does have an established creator behind it, and it's got Jensen Ackles as the star, and so there's a chance that this is something that pops on Amazon. Is it going to be good?
Can I tell you?
Might do well.
Can't tell you. Do you know how many episodes this show is?
Oh man, is it like 10?
It's 13. And I just have to say, like, they also canceled Wheel of Time. It's like, please, like, come on.
That's the thing. Like, these crime shows that don't need 13 are getting 13, and then the fantasy epic shows are getting 8 or 7. It's wild.
So annoying.
I get it. It's cheaper to make these shows.
3 episodes this week and then weekly from there. Just so people know.
Smoke
Smoke
is also coming. This is a Taran Egerton show made by the guy that did Blackbird and Gone Baby Gone and a bunch of other The Outsider.
I've seen a bit of this, Taran. I like it. I really like Taran Egerton. This also has Journey Smollett in it. I love Blackbird. I watched Blackbird. I think Errol and I chatted about Blackbird. Also had Paul Walter Hauser. Certainly a different show, but this one he's an arson investigator. I like it so far. I think it's kind of fun. I don't think it's going to blow you away, but fun show.
Well, I think like what you can expect from this, especially if you look at, I think probably the closest comparison would be Blackbird, which also had Taran Egerton in it. Blackbird was about a criminal who was trying to get like the whereabouts of a serial killer's victims, and it's, I would say, sort of like a slightly elevated version of, this kind of show. This is going to be like a detective trying to find an arsonist, but I expect this to be a little artsier than something like Countdown. And so it might be pretty good. The thing for me is, at this point, I think without a shadow of a doubt, Apple is doing this on purpose, right?
They have to be. Yeah, the single S word shows. They have
Stick,
to be.
Smoke, Silo, like,
yeah.
It's the one word S titles. It's 1000% on purpose.
I totally agree. I don't know.
All right, a couple movies as well coming out. Of course, Megan 2.
Megan 2.0.
2.0. I don't feel optimistic about Megan 2.0.
I mean, I don't feel like they've had a moment like they did with the first one, and maybe maybe this is a thing that will change when the movie comes out. But they really, I feel like really rode on the tails of the dancing scene.
Yeah.
This is classic Terminator style. Like, first movie, the android is bad. Second movie is you got to work with the android to beat the even stronger android. Like, this is exactly what this is going to be. I'm gonna go see it. I definitely don't feel like it has any sort of, pop culture resonance at the moment, and unless there's something that happens this weekend, like I'm actually, I think maybe it feels like maybe they were hoping to just like they could say Megan's coming, and then like, maybe the gays would pop off. That has not happened, I think, at all. And maybe they regret not doing any marketing, because I really have seen nothing about Megan.
The marketing I've seen is that it has become one of the Nicole Kidmans at the AMC theaters, where like every single time I go, I get Megan being like, "Oh, you're here at the theater. Oh, you're gonna watch my movie, right?"
Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. And
but
then,
it's
I don't know.
terribly animated.
Right.
It's the budget on it is so small. I'm like, if this is how it looks in the movie, I don't want to go see the movie. This is terrible.
I mean, the rating so far, I mean, you assume that people have been able to see it at a 5.0. That feels pretty bad. Not that the first one was like amazing, but yeah, it feels like
6.3, not bad for horror, especially the kind of horror that it is, but yeah, right now 5.0. But the ratings they're fairly few at this point.
But you presume that those are critics, and so anyway.
And then of course we've got F1, the movie.
I'm excited for this one. I mean, this has been, I think, like, I don't know, I feel like people have been talking about this movie for forever. I think the whole point is that like Brad Pitt did a lot of his own driving stunts in this movie. It is directed by the same person who did Top Gun Maverick. Unfortunately, he also did Spiderhead, but I actually like Spiderhead. I don't even think Spiderhead's that bad. F1, it feels like a couple years too late, considering like the F1 blow up on Netflix with Drive to Survive. But I don't know. I'm excited for this.
I feel like all of the racing movies I've ever seen all just feel so similar. And everyone always loves them, but I don't usually love them. So
I think Kaczynski being a part of this is probably the piece that like is most exciting for me. He co-developed the story as well that wasn't written by him. I don't know. We'll see. This is, I think, interesting that Apple is putting this movie in theaters, because they are the one who's like the most. They had the whole thing with was it Damon and Clooney, where they like announced the sequel to the movie, but then also they were putting it directly onto streaming. So good that this movie is being released in theaters.
It strikes me as having a little bit of an award push. I'm sure it'll be nominated for like best sound mixing. Like,
I've already seen Brad Pitt doing like a lot of press. I think he was on what's the one with Dax Shepard? Whatever, Couch Therapy. That's not the name of it, but
couldn't tell you.
That's okay. Yeah. So Pitt's already out there doing the circuit. Armchair expert. What did I say? What did I
say?
Couch
therapy.
Couch therapy. Armchair expert. Close enough. Close.
Maybe we should start a podcast called Couch Therapy.
Couch Therapy. Yeah. That's not even that unusual. A lot of the therapy I've done, I sat on a couch. So yeah. Yeah. F1.
All right. Anything else then to talk about before we get into spoilers for his 28 years?
There's a limited release this week coming out called Sorry Baby. I've seen this movie as well. I should have an interview coming out with Ava Victor, the director, and Naomi Ackie, and Lucas Hedges. It is really good. I really, really like this movie. It is the directorial debut and writing debut for Sorry Baby, for Ava Victor. She is like a TikTok star. I found her years ago.
She's also starring, yeah.
She stars in it. She did a TikTok series about straight pride. That's very funny if you haven't seen it. I think she is incredible. This movie is quite sad. It is about somebody who experiences abuse, and then it's mostly about the healing from that. I just think this movie is like it's so specifically weird, and also like broad, and like in the way that it's like very relatable. I just think it's lovely, and I really liked it, and I really enjoyed speaking with Ava Victor about it. So if you're able to check this out this week, it's a limited release, and then hopefully it does well enough it can be expanded a little bit. And
I have one question about this. Is the kitten part of the movie?
Like, no, not really, but the kitten's fine. Nothing happens to the kitten, I promise.
Oh, I just mostly like I want more kitten. So
It's a very cute
um
cat. It is super cute. Yeah.
all right, let's talk about 28 years later. But if you're gonna bounce out, I would recommend going to see it if you
Yeah.
enjoy, horror, if you enjoy Alex Garland, Danny Boyle, zombies, horror, all of that. Go in with the expectations that are out there, I guess, and hope you enjoy it. And come in, tune in next week as we talk about the rest of the stuff that's going to come out, including Squid Game. And now, let's talk about 28 years later. Okay, so the big thing, of course, was tonal shifts. I personally didn't even really feel like because I've heard tonal shift and ending were the two things I've heard. I personally think they're the same thing. However, a lot of what I've heard is that like the people are like, oh, it was like three different movies, or it was like the last third of the movie was such a different thing than the rest of it. And I was like, I don't really know if I feel the same way as that. I think that the last 2 minutes of the movie were very different, but everything leading up to that point, or I would say even like the first 5 minutes and the last 2 minutes were their own thing. And then everything else was, I think very perfectly in line with itself, in my opinion.
I certainly had this thing where, you're like maybe half an hour in, maybe a little bit further along than that, when they are running back across the causeway, like that scene happening, which is a beautifully shot scene with like the sort of like northern lights background.
Mhm.
And I was kind of like, oh, I can't believe we're already back. Like I definitely thought the movie was
Mm.
like father and son go out onto the mainland and like figure out how to get back. And that's not what the movie is. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very important setup to the movie to eventually this idea of Spike and his relationship and his understanding of his father and his desire to save his mom and his connection with his mom. And I do feel like you have those two parts. You have the like going out and hunting, father and son thing, and then you have Spike taking his mom out. And then yeah, you have this like 2-minute ending, which we can talk about, which is wild. But I don't feel like there's yeah, like they feel distinct, but they don't feel disconnected, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does play with expectation a bit in the sense that you are expecting something to go wrong to kick the story off, which is what would normally happen in a scenario like this, where it's like, oh, you go out, they run into problems, it's going to kick off an adventure, maybe. But I think that a really cool part of the movie, which incorporated the song they used for the trailer, the poem, when they set out, that is getting you ready for the fact that this is not what the trope I think would lead you to believe, that they are flashing these images of like child soldiers, and it feels very disturbing, in a way that goes outside of like zombies. It feels like, oh, what, like it's trying to tell me something right now. And so even though you go through that journey and you expect something to go wrong in it to kick off an adventure, when it doesn't, and instead they get home, and like in some ways the true horror is at home, for Spike, that clicks. It makes a lot of sense. And there's Alex Garland clearly has a lot to say about like masculinity, and I think that a lot of that is in this movie. He obviously made Men as well, and I thought it was really, really interesting the way that he wove those themes throughout the film. And when Spike goes out again, that feels like a natural progression of those themes in the story and where things are going. And so, yeah, like I said, I mean, I think that it doesn't conform to what you might expect of it, but I don't think it goes too far out of its way to completely like shift in a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, and I think the stuff that happens in sort of the first act is so important to the second act, where like Spike leaves the village, because so much of what happens when he's out with his father, the way in which his dad is sort of like not glorifying violence, but certainly like supportive of all the stuff that they are doing. And then the way he comes back and is lying about what's happening, and the illusion of who his father is as this person who will take care of their Spike's mom because he's cheating on her. I feel like all of that is so important to the Spike who then ultimately decides to leave and try to like, find um the doctor to take care of his mom. I just think it's like there's so much to this film. I think that one of the things I'm actually the most glad of is I feel like this is like in some ways this feels like the least polarizing Alex Garland film we've gotten in a while, because really the like I feel like so much of what people have been mad about with Alex Garland is like the subtext or or what people perceive as subtext actually being the text or whatever, as opposed to what I feel like people are most mad about in this film is like really like the way in which the last scene of this film, which I guess we should mention at some point, but in case you're watching this without having actually gone to see it, which is that this group of you know wig wearing, tracksuit wearing, who look like very much like Jimmy Savile, which we can talk about that connection in a bit. But they like sort of like beat down these zombies in this like sort of like
They're Power Rangers.
Yes, over the top style, like flip kicks and nunchucks and all of this sort of stuff, in a way that feels very different than the rest of the film. That's obviously setting up the sequel, The Bone Temple, that's coming in January. And so it felt like a post-credit scene, just not in the post, like just fully before the credits to me a little bit. So I'm a little bit more forgiving. I didn't love it at first. I'm sort of fine with it now, knowing that we're doing more. I think it is what it is. But to me, the rest of the film, there's so much like, so to me, it feels like this extra thing that happened at the end that ruined the rest of the film for them. Whereas I feel like so much of like the Garland flashback of the last few years with Civil War and Warfare and Men, all those things have been like just not jiving with like what he's trying to say, in a way that I think it's very interesting that in this film, I think people are like, no, I was jiving so much with what was happening that this thing you did at the end is actually really annoying to me. I think it's very interesting. In terms of the Alex Garland-ness of the film.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the ending for me, what I think happened is the ending happens and it makes you, I think in some ways people then start to think about like, oh, well then, there was already such a shift and now it shifted in another direction. Now it feels like there's just too many shifts. And of course, it's very funny to me because it's very reminiscent of like Sunshine, which is of course a Danny Boyle, Alex Garland collaboration. One of my favorite movies of all time, and very famously, people hate the tonal shift in that movie as well, but sort of for opposite reasons. But I think that because there's such a dramatic shift at the very end, it then gets sort of lumped into and sort of in people's minds sort of helps define the other shifts a little more than they might have otherwise, because like the whole movie is really like a coming of age for Spike and the different ways that he's learning through his father, through his mother, through this doctor, through this like other boy, who the Swedish boy,
Eric.
Eric, and through the infected themselves, and so like all of that was like I think perfectly set up in the arcs that were developed, but the ending sort of shakes you from that and makes you reconsider everything in terms of its structure if it really hits you in a bad way. I didn't love the ending, but because I think there's two main things that people bounce off of. One is the massive tonal shift. It's people dressed as like chavs, Jimmy Savile, and they're Power Rangers, and it feels very unrealistic and very ungrounded, which is actually not that weird in this world. Like even going back to 28 Days, like it's not the most grounded movie in the world. It is very stylized. It is very like goofy at times, and this movie is too. The doctor himself is pretty goofy, but he feels very grounded because you get to see him like speak and get to know him.
Right.
Whereas this is not the case with Jimmy, who is just he shows up. They're Power Rangers. It's like, whoa, that is a bit of a a hit. And then the other thing is that it's so clearly, as you mentioned, sort of like a post-credit thing, as opposed to an ending of a movie. It's so clearly teasing the next one,
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't feel great as the end of a movie. Like if you're just watching this movie as is, like I'm gonna put on a movie. I'm just gonna watch a movie. That's a weird way to end a singular movie. It feels like part one of two parts. But even in part ones, usually the endings of those movies feel unfinished. They don't feel like they're teasing something. This feels like the end of an episode more than an end of a movie.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's a little strange. However, eh, is there a better way to do it? Should this have been post credits? I don't know, because then there's all this Jimmy setup that never gets resolved within the movie. Maybe it would have been better as post credits, but I also don't love post credit scenes because I don't like waiting till the post credits. I'm just gonna, if I'm watching it at home, I'm just gonna fast forward through it and watch it immediately anyway. So, is there really that much of a difference? And so ultimately, I'm kind of conflicted. But the bottom line for me is that like it doesn't really take away from the movie in almost any way. I really loved it otherwise.
I like it a lot. I think that the coming of age thing I think really works for me. I'm a big fan of coming of age films. And then the other thing for me is like I was struggling with this movie for about the first 15 20 minutes ish. I found the sort of gritty nature, like this style of filmmaking that I think he occasionally uses for this type of movie. Like I don't think you see it as much in a thing like, Yesterday or Steve Jobs really, but that thing that he's using about the camera shifts and the cuts, like in this movie,
Freeze frames,
the
the
freeze
quick
frames,
cuts,
slow-mo stuff. I actually don't. I find it to be unpolished in a way that initially I was like, oh, I'm not liking it. But it's so much of the point of
Mhm.
like a post-apocalyptic world. And I just found the story with Spike and his dad in that first part where they go on sort of the adventure and he's sort of cheering him on, and they're on the run, and then the point where he comes back and he realizes how much of like a facade there is, I think, to his father, and then the bravado, and then this pursuit. And I really do think like like for me the movie is mostly working really well, and then Ray Fiennes shows up and I'm like, oh my god, this movie is incredible. I really do think that Ray Fiennes kicks this movie into an extra gear. And this is stuff, again, I think the thing you're saying about the way that it's funny to say that this movie is grounded until Jimmy Savile shows up, because this is a man who like is burning bodies and has skulls of like and he's like talking about,
You literally about the
Latin.
mountain of skulls, and you're supposed to take him 100% seriously.
100%. And he's, and he is like, he's philosophizing. He's like, these are people who once saw and spoke and all, it's like all of this. He's like in iodine, and like this is a movie with like, full on like raging testosterone zombie monsters called alphas who apparently impregnate. Like there's a lot going, like there's a zombie pregnancy, there's a zombie birth scene in this movie, like where like the women are like holding it, like it's pretty out there. And I just think so much of it is working. I think that specifically once you get to the doctor and you get these ideas of like, there's a birth, so now, like she's gonna die, and that whole thing, and like the way that he's like holding he puts the skull on the top. Like it's amazing to me that this does work, but it does work in this particular world that they've built. And I guess I'm wondering, like, Taran, what did you make of the fact that like in the middle of this movie they're like, oh, and also the rest of the world is like totally fine. There are iPhones and people are like delivery drivers, and like the rest of the world is as was. It's just the island, of Britain that has like been quarantined forever.
Well, yeah. Oh, I saw some of that because the way I watched it, I thought the opening scroll kind of explained that. But then I did see a lot of people being like, "Oh, I was so surprised when he was talking about iPhones." I guess it didn't like fully explain it, and I also didn't rewatch Weeks beforehand, and I know that confused some people because 28 Weeks has sort of, they had to kind of retcon 28 Weeks, I think, in order to Not fully. I think the explanation is they just like nuked Paris or something, and that contained it. But like theoretically, it's supposed to not be contained to the UK. But yeah, I think in general, what they say is that Europe fought it back, and they were able to just quarantine the UK. And then when they show when he's like, oh, there's the boat, that's probably a French boat or something. It was like, oh yeah, okay, they're doing patrols. I thought that was just a really, I mean, that obviously is a huge part of, I think, the theming for what they're doing here. The reason why they're containing it to the UK is for, you know, some of the stuff you mentioned earlier about like Brexit and like what kind of, like, that's such a fascinating concept that you don't usually get in this kind of movie, which is these people are living one way, but outside of that exists us. And what kind of world is that? And I'm sure that's something that will be explored, I imagine, even more in future movies. But I thought that was such a fascinating thing and really added a lot to the movie because there's something that Danny Boyle does, I think, and you know, I'll give Alex Garland credit for it as well. But like that opening scene when the kids are watching Teletubbies as the zombies attack. I just feel like for me, that's such a choice by this team, by Boyle and Garland, that most people wouldn't make, I think, in the way that they do. Having Teletubbies on the screen, it just grounds it in a visceral way for me. That is like, this is like, I feel like I can remember being a kid watching Teletubbies with chaos going on around me and just seeing the Teletubbies and hearing the chaos and feeling that level of connection to reality. I think that when you then put, you know, like a zombie story, sorry, I'm a little all over the place, but like a zombie story is usually the outbreak or the 28 years later, right? It's either The Walking Dead post season 2, where it's like there's camps and it's like The Last of Us, right?
Yeah.
Or it's the outbreak. And when you get to like The Last of Us section, when you get to like, oh, it's like 20 plus years later, it's just like a post-apocalyptic world. It doesn't have a lot of connection to the old world anymore. So, but what they've done is that they've sort of managed to do both, where we now have this post-apocalyptic UK, but it still is connected to our world. And if we are that Swedish boy, like, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for the rest of the world? What does that mean for the people that are there? What kind of opinions and reactions do people have about that? Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff. And then, of course, within that world, you have this little island off of the mainland that has secluded themselves and all of that stuff. So a lot of interesting theming, and I'm really, really curious to see where they take that with future movies.
Yeah, I just think this movie is so. I don't love the ending, but I'm okay with it because, you know, they're gonna do more. But I do just think like it's so much more beautiful than I like thought it was going to be. I just think it's like it's so resonant. All that stuff we're talking about in terms of like the way in which they're able to, you know, draw these parallels with Britain being isolated from the rest of the world. I thought was really. I mean, Eric is such a like comic relief in the middle of this film. Like genuinely, the whole theater I was in was laughing. Like these lines of like, why does she look like she look like that is like so funny. I think it's and then there's so many action scenes that are like extremely memorable and good. I mean, I've talked about the like causeway chase with the stars in the sky. I do think like the gas station filled with gas scene is really good. Obviously the first time I think that they go to Memento Mori is really good. Like there's just so many like stunning, you know, scenes. I have one question about whether or not the baby would be infected, but it's fine for the story. It's fine.
The magic of placenta. That's what the doctor said.
Yeah, apparently.
I did have a brief moment, which was then subsequently like explained by myself. But like when the zombies are called alphas, I was like, really, we're doing that? Like Alex Garland, I thought you were better than. But then of course you realize, oh, this is on purpose. Like the concept of alphas, of course, long since debunked as in terms of like it being a natural occurring thing in the wild. But this is this I think so specifically they are called alphas because we are talking about again masculinity and the ways in which these cultures develop themselves around young boys going out becoming heroes, exaggerating those stories, and then when you have Eric come in, he's like, alphas, that's a stupid name, you should call them like berserkers or whatever. It was just well thought out, good stuff all around.
The poem scene is, I'm so glad they used it in the movie as well as the trailer, because yeah, that scene of them as him and his dad are going out is just, it's so chilling. Like it's just
so good.
It's so good. It's
the
so
way that I watched it, at least for like the way that I experienced it, really worked for me because you are. I mean, in Last of Us sort of does this too, but in a different way. But like you very much are wanting to be in this in the way that they are, where it's like loving father, dutiful son. They're going out like this is a good thing. Like he's being trained, he's being trusted. They need to do this. Like all of this, like you're really with them. You want to be with them, and then the way that it's cut, the way that the song, the poem is read, the flashes of these disturbing images, completely it challenges you to be like, you're okay with this? Like and it really just it's so good and really sets up I think the rest of the movie in such a great way. And it's such a good sequence on its own too. It was just great stuff.
really great.
All right. I think that's it then.
That's it.
That's what we have for you this week on the Tastemakers. Little bit of a longer one. So we talked about 28 years later, but hopefully you enjoyed it. As I said, next week we'll have some Squid Game to talk about. We'll have maybe a little bit more information on the fate of Elio and 28 years later in the box office. And we'll see where The Bear is going. We'll see if Smoke is any good, and all of that good stuff. So plenty to catch up on next week as well.
I'm doing my best. I'm trying to catch up through the Gilded Age to be able to be watching along. So I know the first episode of the new season premiered last night, but I haven't had a chance to check it out because I'm just not quite caught up yet, but I'll get there.
Yeah. You enjoying it so far?
I do. I don't mind. I mean, I'm a little like, I know people talk about season 2 being better than season 1. So I've just started season 2. I do think you notice that season 2 is better than season 1. So yeah, people really like it. People really like the Gilded Age. So
they do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is what we have for you then this week. Thank you so much for joining us. And in the meantime, make sure you check out, make sure you subscribe, make sure you check out all the other stuff we're doing here on the network. Find me over on Twitch and YouTube. I mentioned I did finish The Devil's Plan Season 2. I think it's a phenomenal season. I think that it's had a little bit of controversy. I would say some people like the first season better, but I think it's still a very, very good season of television. I think it's genuinely, for me at least, in contention for just best competition reality show of all time. Like just between the drama, the games, the characters, it's the editing. It's so good. And I've done a full now season reaction analysis. The episodes are an hour 40 long. My reactions are like 2.5 hours long. So
there you go.
That's all on Patreon if you want to check out those. And Grace, anything else to plug?
No, that's it for now. I'm on social media at Hi From Grace.
All right. Well, thank you all once again for joining us here today, and we will see all of you next time.